what labor looks like and stuff like that. Okay, so back to our friend the uterus. Here we go. Does anyone know the name of the hormone that makes your joints relax at the end of your pregnancy?
Progesterone.
No, that's not right. But that's one that we're in. So it's the chemical that surges through the mommy's body in the 3rd trimester, and remember the pelvis, it makes all the joints get soft and loosey-goosey.
Relaxin'?
Good, relaxin', yeah. So it's just like the name sounds. It doesn't sound very technical, but yeah. So relaxin is free, and it helps your pelvis open, so that's a given. And that's why at the end of your pregnancy, you feel like klutzy or loosey-goosey, or you might like trip over things or kind of be a little more klutzy than you're used to being, and you're like, why do I feel so weird? And that is why. Or why do my joints feel funny, or my knees are weird? And it's because of that relaxin, which is actually your friend. And then guess what? After you have your baby, everything tightens up again. Okay, what is the name of the hormone that caught when you were warm, but not right on? But what's the name of the hormone that starts with a P, that sounds like a male body part, and softens and ripens the cervix?
Oh, God. I'm trying not to be 12 years old right now.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you're cheating and looking at my. But you're right. It's prostaglandins. Okay. So there's always a P joke in there, but all right. So what ripens the cervix is the prostaglandins. Okay. So we're going to spend a second on the prostaglandins. Have you guys heard of anything that can, like folk remedies or home remedies, where women are like, I'm tired of being pregnant, like I did this to try and get into labor? What have you heard?
Spicy food.
Good. Spicy. Okay, spicy food. What else have you got?
Swimming.
Okay.
Sex.
Yeah. Sex, I'm going to put in big letters, and we'll talk about that in a second because that's kind of a big deal, but let's move on. Anything else?
Like yoga or like
So like movement. Well,
yeah.
maybe I'll just change this to movement, okay?
To go into labor, right?
Yeah.
My sister-in-law just had a baby. She was gonna eat a pineapple core.
Yes. Okay. Pineapple. Good.
So spicy food won't make you go into labor like when you're not ready, right? Because I still like spicy.
So it actually won't.
Okay.
I just eat it a lot.
So, okay, so here's
Oh,
something.
That's a myth.
Okay, let's discuss
Okay.
yes and no, okay? So, here you are, you're not pregnant, and you have your little uterus, it's like the size and shape of a fist. And what, I'm getting ahead of myself, we're gonna have to go back to this in a minute when I explain something else, okay? We'll go back to that in a second. We'll add pineapple to the list. Have you heard of anything else you eat that maybe spicy, pineapple? Anything else you can think of where people are like, I'm tired of being in labor, I did this.
Castor oil.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Have you guys ever heard of that?
Yeah.
We're gonna put castor oil down here in the isolation tank. Okay, and we're gonna talk about that in a second. Okay, so some other things I've heard of is evening primrose oil. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that one.
Like rub it on you?
So let me explain the concept and then you'll understand what it's for, okay? People can take it in their mouth, or some people even apply it directly to the cervix by kind of putting it up towards the cervix. So let's talk about why people do these things. Prostaglandins are in male and female bodies. And prostaglandins are a hormone always associated with inflammation, okay? So let's say you get a scratch or a cut. It's like this line on your arm. It turns red. It gets puffy. It gets hot. That is inflammation. And why does it do that? So it could heal it, right? Because what it wants is like lots of blood to rush to that area, inflame it, and like get busy healing it. So that's the purpose of inflammation in our bodies. Problems happen when we have too much inflammation, but generally inflammation is like kind of a positive thing. And so prostaglandins are kind of like the triggers that cause the they go to the place and cause the inflammation, right? Okay, but the way that prostaglandins work on my arm are really different than they work on my cervix when I'm pregnant. When you're pregnant, what do prostaglandins do to a cervix?
Relax
They soften it. We call it ripening it because it makes it soft, smushy, thinner. It does that ripening. So have you ever picked fruit like an apple or something off a tomato off a tree, and if it's green and you try to pick it, it like won't go, it won't come. But then if it's ripe, it's just like bloop, it just comes right off. That's how the woman's body works. If she's ripe and ready, it just goes, right? Okay. So if we think about how inflammation and prostaglandins are the same thing, then how do you think that eating spicy food could influence? What happens when you eat spicy food?
You get hot, heart rate, blood flow,
Right.
sweat, like,
So we don't know this because there's no research. But like I think the idea behind it is like if you irritate your body, you raise your prostaglandin levels, and then they're hoping it kind of goes there and works on the system. Do you know what I mean for the cervix? So if you look at the spicy foods, the pineapple, and I don't know if you've heard of like high histamine foods, but there's any foods that like you're not allergic to, but they're kind of more irritating, like strawberries, mangoes, bananas, pineapples. Those kind of are what we call high histamine foods. More people tend to be allergic to them. Please don't eat the things you're allergic to. But I think that's the idea behind it too, is like kind of irritating your system a little bit, getting a little bit like angry, and then you have more prostaglandins on board. And then evening primrose oil is actually a precursor. It's like one of the ingredients your body needs to make prostaglandins. So evening primrose oil is from oil from a rose, and like you can get it in like an oil in a bottle, or you can get those little capsules, and some people like take it and stuff like that. It's totally harmless. It's just basically the idea behind it is you're giving your body some things you need to make more prostaglandins, okay? And then zinc is another one that's like a precursor to prostaglandins. So I've seen people like, oh, I'm going to take zinc lozenges. Do these things work? I don't know. Like I wouldn't break my back trying to make these, because it's kind of like it's going to happen when it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like what's the rush? Do we really need to push this? That's kind of my camp. Let's talk about sex for a second, because this operates on a few different zones of action. Does anybody know why the sex thing is used to induce labor? Like the mechanism of it?
contractures.
He's right, okay? So if it's a good lovemaking, then if the woman has an orgasm, that's actually a uterine contraction, actually. So it's kind of like, can we kickstart this? Okay, so that's one piece. And then can you think of anything else? So this is kind of crazy, little known fact, but the male seminal fluid contains loads of prostaglandins. It's almost like where it's even comparable to medications that we use to actually break the cervix. And the delivery system's a little bit nicer. But that's kind of the idea. When I was like, this is so like cool and natural, but then like when I read studies and they're like, does sex make people have labor sooner? It's kind of like, nah. But like, it's kind of in the camp of like, it doesn't hurt. If your water breaks, you don't want to put anything in the vagina anymore. Can you think of why?
External, like, yeah.
Yeah, because now this is the baby, the water bag is the baby's seal of protection from the outside world, and everything in there is like sterilized. And then as soon as we break that open, anything that goes in the vagina could like introduce yuckies to the baby. Not that like, you know, but it like just anything from the outside going in, even vaginal exams, we want to really reduce those because we don't want that baby to get infected. So that would just be a time when we'd want to lay off on the sex, okay? All right, so those are just some like, you know, just to explain to you about how the cervix ripens and stuff like that. Do you need to do these things? Absolutely not. You don't need to. I'm just kind of talking to you about what's out there. Now, there are some medical pharmaceutical analogs of prostaglandins, okay? So there's something called PPG1 and PPG2, okay? Most hospitals don't have both, but we've got both. And I love that about our hospital, that we can make both available to you. The reason is because one's really expensive and it's a slow and gentle ride, and one's like cheap and quick and it's like a little bit faster, but sometimes it has more side effects, okay? So you and your care provider can discuss and decide, but what I love is they do the old-fashioned one, they still use it here. Oh, I love it. Okay, so the PEG one is called dinoprostone. Okay, and I want you to think of it like a little tiny micro tea bag, okay? And let's say they're going to use this medication to induce your labor. There's some medical reason why we need your baby out today, and we can't wait for your baby to come when it wants to come. We need it out today, okay? So your cervix is like rock hard, like a little fist, and we need to start you into labor for medical reasons. We can use dinoprostone, and what it looks like is before you check into the hospital and before you go to sleep, we put this little tiny tea bag, we push it up next to your cervix, and then we just leave it there. And overnight, it kind of ripens you gradually and slowly, and tends to be pretty gentle, and you wake up in the morning and there's been change, and that's kind of great. And it kind of gives you a chance to ease into it, and your baby to get used to it and ease into it. And then a really cool thing I like is that string. What's that string for?
Taking it back out when you're done.
What happens if the baby's stressed out and doesn't like that? You yank it. So I like that, but you can pull it. So that's kind of one of my favorite things about that, is that we don't know how you're going to respond to it. If we put it in April, nothing happen because she might not have any receptors to pick it up yet. But if we put it in Amanda, we might put a little whiff of something in there, and she's in full-blown, full force, like bing, bang, boom, heavy, heavy-duty labor right away. And her baby's like getting stressed out, and we just pull it. You see what I mean? So I kind of like that, and I love the fact that we have that choice here. So I'm kind of like, my philosophy is, what's the least amount of medication we can give to get the desired result? We can get away with less side effects. So I'm a fan. Okay, our second one is called misoprostol. And it was found out by accident as a side effect that it throws women into labor. And it's a tiny pill, and you can either take it by mouth or they can also push it up near your cervix. And it tends to be like a quicker acting medication. So let's say we gave it to April, who didn't respond to dinoprostone, it could be just the ticket for her. But what would happen if we used it first on her? You know what I mean? How do we pull it out if it's stressing out the baby? Do you know what I mean? So that's why I love the fact that we have the two different kinds. Okay, so just know for that one that there's two medications available. You can discuss with your provider and decide what's the best fit. Okay.
How often do they need to give you that to induce a labor?
So on a first-time mom, imagine you have to get the toothpaste cap off, right? And how many first-time moms do you think are walking around and their cervix already ripe and ready to go before labor even happens? Very few. Very few of those first-time moms. So I'm going to say a lot of first-time moms would need kind of that first step. Does that make sense to you?
But that wouldn't happen until after you came to the hospital because you were in
Correct.
labor, right?
We're talking about this medication is when you're trying to start labor artificially when she's not in labor. So you're trying to medically induce labor to happen, and she's not even in labor. You're trying to get her induced for a medical reason, right? Does that make sense to you? So if you're already in labor, we wouldn't use this because you're already past that point, right?
So you're saying most first-time moms need to be induced?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm
If
saying
for some reason.
if for some reason you needed to be medically induced, the first-time moms need this ripening step. Some of the second-time moms are already ripe when they come in. You know? But yeah, hopefully you never need medication and your own body just does its own little thing and it's perfect. Okay? Yeah. This is a hope you never need it situation.
Or if you're like way past your due date and you're kind of just like, what's going on here? And
Yeah. So there can be medical reasons why they want your baby to come along when it's
Right.
not showing up yet.
How long will they let you go past your due date?
So that varies so much by the different providers.
Okay.
Some doctors will let you go right up into that 42-week mark, and they're just happy to check on your baby and let you keep going.
Oh.
And some of them at 39 weeks, they're like, get out, you know what I mean? And that's really also a philosophy thing about the doctor and their practice and their style that you have to kind of jive with and have conversations about what do you like, what's your preference, you know? Knowing what you know. The March of Dimes urges people to let their baby have 40 weeks to grow because their brain changes so much that with those last couple of weeks of pregnancy, when they're born just even a week early, it can make them poor feeders, it can make them have more health problems and more struggles in the beginning, and letting them have the full 40 weeks is kind of a big deal. It's a big campaign for the March of Dimes. So we'll see a video about that later, but yeah, so anyways. Okay, so let's visit our friend castor oil. Do you guys know what it is? There's a leaf, it's called the castor plant, okay? And it exudes this disgusting slimy oil called castor oil. It's a vegetable source, but it's totally slimy. Like that's the best way to describe it. It's the slimiest oil ever. And so, like kind of an old midwives trick, you know, is like a shot of castor oil and a shot of orange juice. And what effect this has is we're talking about irritation, right? So it makes you poop like a goose. Like it gives you horrid diarrhea and cramps. And then the idea is your body is so irritated and that it trips off uterine contractions. Does it work? It tends to work for second-time moms, and it tends to work for moms who are way closer to 42 weeks, who are already ripe. But if it's me, I don't want to start labor feeling sick and depleted and tired from being on the can all day. That's just me, like I wouldn't want to. So, you know, and I would never do that without talking to your doctor first. Because can this stress the baby if you have like really strong contractions? It sure could, you know, so. This is a major intervention. That's why I put it in this little box. Because all these things are totally harmless. Like, you would never hurt your baby, or like April said, you can never force your baby out early by doing these things. You won't. Because you have to have the receptors to pick that up that only comes with a little bit of ripeness that's already happening. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Like stress. Like, you know, arguments, traffic, work, you know, like anything external. Can that induce labor as well?
Yeah, like, okay, hold that thought, because I'm going to tell you a story about a squirrel later to answer that.
I can't wait.
Okay. But what we know about mothers and babies is they're very vulnerable and tender and very open to picking up emotional vibes around them. Not only is the mom, but our babies can also feel those sensations of stress. So let me give you an example. You're driving in your car and some idiot in front of you just cuts right in front of you and cuts you off. You have to slam on the brakes because you're just about to hit them, right? You almost have a near accident. If you hadn't been really paying careful attention, you would have slammed right into their back, okay?